Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Apologize for the raspy voice, but I've been traveling so much, allergies and changing of climate. As you know, I just came back from LA. I still have content from my first visit to LA with the Costa Mesa show, still doing stuff with the Inacoustic. I'm so far behind, yet I'm going back out of town to Alaska for a cruise, family cruise, later this week. So I've got some videos in the hopper, and thankfully some of my friends have helped curate some content for me that I can put out while I'm gone. And today is going to be one of them. It's going to be Dave Housteau giving his review of the Bacch based on he purchased it, and you've seen him on the channel. He's done some of the rooms at Expona. I've done some videos, Zooms with his room. Exceptional system. And it's really great to see a person that put everything into the room as well as great equipment, still how the Bacch was able to help elevate his performance. So that's what you're going to hear today. Also, while I'm gone, I have another cool video in the hopper. Norman Varney went to the NWAA labs, and this is a rare experience to be able to get into that lab where they do acoustic and loudspeaker testing. He's going to give us an insight. I was supposed to go with him after the Pacific Audio Fest, but I had to get back. But he agreed to shoot some video for me, and I'm going to release that while I'm gone. So I appreciate Norman doing that. Again, his products, his EVP products, super cool. And if you're interested in them, I would encourage you joining the membership section of our group, because we can do group buys and we get some discounts. So feel free to do that if you're interested in his products. But you're going to love this video with the inside look. Tons of speaker makers would love to have this kind of ability to measure speakers, and he does that with his products. Gives you another level of comfort what he's doing. But then on top of that, what I wanted to share with you guys is, again, as I mentioned in a prior video, it's all about the relationships, is why I do this channel. It's not for what YouTube pays me, which is pennies. So what I would like to do is share more on the channel, things that I hear from you guys, either through email, text, WhatsApp group. If you guys want to shoot videos for me and have it put on the channel, feel free to do so. I think Steve Gutenberg used to feature some of his subscribers' systems on the channel, but it mainly was just pictures and just the rundown of gear. What I would be interested in is, if you're a subscriber and you're interested in giving me some video content to share, is I would be interested in seeing your system from a video perspective, but also some insights that you've learned over the years. It's all about, my channel is showing people how to shortcut that learning curve that's taken me over 30, 40 years, and I'm still learning. Helping everybody get up to speed faster and learning the voodoo versus the real stuff. The Inacoustic tour was a great chance for people to learn some stuff when things that matter in cabling, things that don't matter. These are kind of things I like to do. And if you have a video that you can shoot with your cool equipment, but also things that you've learned, sharing that piece of knowledge that helped put you over the edge, made a big difference, I'd be interested in seeing that content and potentially put it on the channel. So feel free to reach out to me. Email's always in the description. But for now, let's listen to Dave and his review of the Bacch-SP.
Hello, and welcome to the officially unofficial Bacch for Mac video. This is basically a video on my own personal experiences with it so far. For those of you not too familiar with what Bacch-SP is, I'm going to give you a brief explanation. I'm going to assume that most of you are already aware, and that's how you found your way to this video. Bacch-SP was developed by Dr. Edgar Choeri, a professor of applied physics at Princeton University under the name of Theoretica Applied Physics. And the Bacch-SP is BACCH-SP. It's an acronym, and it stands for Band Associated Crosstalk Cancellation Hierarchy Stereo Purifier. I think the best way to describe what the Bacch is to first describe what it is not. It is not a process of something artificial being added to the original source material, making it more holographic and 3D sounding. It is not some advanced form of cue sound or a matrix special enhancement of some sort. It is in fact a stereo purifier, as in the name. Think of it as a highly advanced filter that removes disinformation in the audio spatial cues before they reach your ears. Those incorrect spatial cues prevent you from experiencing a lot of the 3D naturalness that is in recordings. What am I talking about disinformation here? Well, disinformation is created in different ways, such as various room reflections and also from crosstalk. And what is crosstalk? Well, crosstalk, simply is when your right ear receives information from the left channel over, and your left ear is going to experience information coming from the right. And when this deformation is removed, the natural spatial steering that's within a recording is allowed to take an unhindered full control. And this often creates a true holographic soundstage of extreme depth and width, unable to be experienced elsewhere, even in the finest of systems. But recordings that lack such grand spatial information will come across pretty much as they had without the Bach. Since the Bach filter, it's not adding anything artificial to what's already there. It's not an understatement to say that the Bacch-SP, it's a true paradigm shift in how one can enjoy and experience music at home. I first experienced this for myself at the demo in Exponent in Chicago this year. There was not a single person at that demo that was able to hear the demo that was not extremely impressed by it. If you hear of or read about someone that was not impressed, then most likely they did not really experience the demo. I mean, there's a good chance they were in the room, but if they were not in the specific zone, that sweet spot, that one seat, they did not experience a demo. They just experienced an average sounding room, because that one seat is that place where it all comes together. In most other, demo rooms, you can be out of the sweet spot in different places in that room and still get a general flavor of what that room is all about. But not so with the Bach. I mean, you really have to be in that very special place. No other seat is going to work. The Bach is a true personal listening experience for those that sit and enjoy music and don't move around, Now, in its current form, it's not designed for group listening, but that may change in the future. Now, it's not to say that your head needs to be in a vice to enjoy what the Bach can do for you. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, I find the sweet spot listening for the Bach to be extremely generous. I can move forward, I can move backward, I can move my head side to side, I can turn both ways, and I do not lose anything that the Bach is creating in my room. But for those who do move further out of the sweet spot, they do have a head tracking feature, which allows you to continue to experience, what the Bach can do, even further out of the normal sweet spot zone. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. Now, the only exception to that special seat in the demo room is that seat directly behind the prime seat. Now, if you're there sitting and you lean forward a little bit, you can start to experience what the Bach is all about. And the closer you get and invading that space of the person sitting in front of you, the more of that Bach experience you're going to have.
Let's do a change of scenery here. And you're probably thinking, oh, thank goodness for that, right? So what can the Bach do for you in your room? What can you expect? I'm going to use my system here as an example. First off, not everyone is at the same place with their audio systems. Some have a higher quality of sonics in certain areas than others do. I'm not talking about money spent here, as those that spend the most automatically get better sound. I'm saying that some systems are simply just better researched and dialed in than others are. So the delta or change that one may experience with the Bach is going to vary system to system. As an example, let's say that you have two systems, A and B. System A and B both want to extend their frequency response using subwoofers down to the 20 hertz zone. Now, system A is a really well dialed in system. Nice, everything about it is just spot on the money. And they have a frequency response now that goes down into, let's say, the mid-upper 30s. But they want it to go further. Now, person B also very dialed in system, but maybe a slightly smaller room. And let's say they're using stand mount speakers that their response extends down into, let's say, the upper 40s. They both add subwoofers in, whether it's a pair, a swarm, it doesn't matter. It's just whatever they do it right. And their extension now is down at 20 hertz or 22 hertz. And they're both extremely pleased with it, as the integration, everything has worked really well. Well, more than likely, person B is going to experience the greatest wow factor, since his system had the potential for the most improvement. And so his delta was much larger, his change, than person A. It's the same for the Bach. Some systems have less than ideal soundstage presentation before they add the Bach, and will improve the most and potentially impress the most. Now, my system here, I've spent a lot of time and work into creating the kind of soundstage and imaging that I like. Now, when I say system, I'm not just referring to components selection, but also the room itself and the general setup, within that room, that listener triangle. So for the Bach, I was starting from a point of really good imaging and soundstage with speakers that completely disappear. So my initial delta or change in performance was probably not as large as it would be for those whose spatial aspects of their system were not as fully fleshed out. But conversely, though, I believe that systems that begin better dialed in have the greatest potential to reach their highest quality. So what can one expect? Well, let's take my system for example. Pre-Bach, my soundstage began at the plane of the speakers. The depth was extending all the way back to the wall behind them and beyond. That is a distance of about 6 feet. And it was a very nice imaging. Everything is in proportion and spatially correct. Width all the way out. Not normal recordings, I would get width out to, I'd say that French door half, which is on the right-hand side, easily over to there, past the corner, of course, far outside the plane of the speakers, with some recordings starting to wrap that second half of the door on the left. Q-sound recordings, well, they are all the way into my CD storage area there on the far left. Now, what I experienced with the Bach, what did it change? Well, it changed a lot. And I'll tell you what, the depth, which I thought was great, became more dimensional. The apparent depth was greaterly extended, further back, slightly further forward, but it had more texture, it had more body. It was more holographic. And the imaging that I was used to wrapping around this far, let's say to the 10, 11 o'clock position normally, well, that changed completely because the imaging before was flat. I didn't have a lot of dimension to it, didn't have a lot of depth, other than you heard sounds, but you couldn't really place them in relation to each other in a front-to-back type of ratio. Or with the Bach, the dimensionality, the depth of the front extends all the way around now, all the way around. And it's quite something. The same as over here to the right. Now, do all recordings sound good? In a word, no. Some recordings will sound a little unnatural, but those are the very, very few. Most everything I've listened to, the presentation is extremely natural, extremely focused within the soundstage. All performers and instruments are in proportion to each other, and nothing is larger than life. Sometimes you'll get with larger panel speakers, like say Magnapan, you'll get images that are stretched. You know, you'll have a vocalist that'll appear 3 feet to 5 feet wide at places, and maybe taller than life, and just a guitar which is too wide, and just images that are stretched because I think of the large panel. Of course, I never had that here before, and the box certainly did not change anything about the presentation other than to flesh out detail and true holographic imaging all the way around. Now, to give you an idea of my room, it does, I said I'm about 20 and a half foot wide. And then, of course, I've got it coming around. This is where my equipment lives. And we're going to go over and take a look at the Bach setup there in a minute. But then also it comes around. Now I'm turning around behind me now a little bit. I got my record cleaning station. And I've got storage areas and things like this, you know, in the back of the room. I have a 10-foot space behind my listening seat. So let's take a look at, when you first get the Bach, what do you get? What comes in? First off, let's take a look at the case. This is an extremely nice case that everything comes in. I have it unpacked now, so there's no reason to open that up. And you have a smaller case here, which sees very high quality binaural recording microphones come in. Now, these microphones are part of the system, and they're used for setting your filter for the Bach. Now they're panning over, the rest of my system is over here. And I've got my May DAC, Holo Audio, May KTE DAC, and I've got the Serena, the preamplifier. And over here we have the my screen for my Roon. And in the back, you will see this first Mac Mini. This is the Bach for Mac. Right after that are some storage hard drives. And if you can see, there's a second Mac over there on the far right. That is for my Roon core. And also it controls the hard drives acting as a server. Now, when you get the Bach for Mac, you can opt. You can do everything all in one. But since I already had Roon core and everything all set up, I decided I'm just going to keep them separate, you know, for now. Now, when I got my Mac, I decided to get it pre-configured and ready to go. That is one of the options, and it's something I recommend highly to everyone. Another part of the Bach for Mac system is the Babyface Pro. That is this right here. Now, the Babyface Pro is basically, it's a recording interface for the Mac computer. What it does, it's basically a set of ins and outs. It allows you to get your audio, both analog and digital, into the Mac for Bach for processing. And also has the connection for the recording microphones that, you know, to set up your filter. Now, there are different ways to connect the Bach to your system. Now, one of the ways is to you have USB directly out of the Mac Mini. You also have Toslink optical out of the Babyface Pro. And I know, I've read the same things that, Toslink is bad. It's evil, bad juju. But we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. I've also heard, of course, what's the worst thing you can do is connect a computer directly to a DAC, right? Computers are dirty, always have been. And so, the difference today is that a lot of the DACs, including my May DAC, it is set up with an extremely well-designed USB input, which is optically isolated. And most of the newer DACs are the same way. Holo Audio says this is their best input over all others. And, well, I believe them. All my testing and listening has shown that to be absolutely true. Now, up in front here is this is the Bacch-SP screen. And so what's that? You think this looks too complicated? Yeah, well, don't be a sissy. Don't worry about it. You're going to find out that everything you need to do and want to do is extremely easy, and it's nothing to be concerned about. And we're going to also get to that in a little while. But as I mentioned, technically there's no reason to be worried about connecting the Bach using USB, back to your DAC. But listening is going to be the final decision on that. You can compare it with optical if you like to. Okay. Now it's time to take another look at that scary screen. The screen is not your enemy, it is your friend. And it's a friend that you can interact with as often as you want to, or not at all. In fact, that makes it the ideal friend. So think of the Bacch-SP as a component in your system. And what we've done here by looking at the screen, we've popped the lid and we're looking inside at the quality of what this component is, everything that makes it up, all these different adjustments and controls that are actually preset for you, where you don't have to go in and change anything if you do not want to or need to. And most often you don't. There's something that I haven't mentioned yet, which is a very important part of this Bach package. And with the Bacch-SP, you get a phone call and you get direct screen interaction with Edgar, who will, through this one little program over here, will get on your screen from his home and will walk you through all the settings that you need to know. Will personally set up your Bacch-SP for your system, and all the settings will be saved. And pages will be saved as well, so if you have an issue or you think you may have made a mistake, you can go over and let's see, where's my mouse? There it is. And I could bring up screenshots. And here's a screenshot. This is something that we saved. This is the MIDI settings. So if I'm not sure of how that should be set, it's there, set for me. But that's very important, the interaction. This is the quality control. This is the proof of everything that happens, the extent of the leadership of the company extending out to you, making you personally important. Remember, like I said, all this is being set up for you, and you basically can sit back and you can watch as you're on the phone with him as he's making all these different adjustments. He's going to walk you through different tests to do to be sure everything is set up just right. And basically, this becomes a hands-off type of thing. It's plug and play. Now, to set yourself up for a filter, you basically, you activate where you want it to go. You can store up to 3, 1, 2, and 3. Down here you have an arm button. Now I'm not going to arm it, but basically you click arm. It'll turn green. And then over here, this is microphone level. You'll see those start to dance in about 2, maybe 3 seconds, in which case you can tap one of your ears to be sure that you're wearing the microphones correctly, that right is right, left is left. And then that's the fire button. When you press fire, you'll be instructed through your system to go to your listening seat, have your head in position, and test tones will begin. Now, part of the setup, Edgar wanted to know, well, how far am I away? How far is my listening seat away from my screen? And I'm about 10 feet away. So what he did, over here, it's preset. Again, I don't have to mess with it. In commands, he set 15. Basically, that gives me 15 seconds from when I press that fire button to go sit in my seat. And what happens then, you're going to go through 2 tones. One tone for left channel, then a few seconds later, tone for the right channel. And then you'll be told calibration is complete. Then you can come up, you can look at it, and then over here, you're going to have a graph. You're going to have information put out to you. And this is what it looks like after a calibration. Now, all this information is useful information. This is a very important part of Bach if you choose to use it. If you don't want to, don't. But I'm going to explain to you what this can do for you. This is impulse response. Now, my room is not perfect. It's not bad. But this is initial impulse response from my speakers. Now, over in the dark is left channel, red is right. I have a little bit of minor reflections here, and I've got one here which is mirrored on the other side. And this is about 15 milliseconds off the main impulse. And so that's pretty inconsequential, but that is one of the main issues I've got that I can sort out. So I can figure out what reflection is happening at that point. I could treat it. And then I can continue. I could take another calibration and see what happens to that signal. Is it still there? Has it been modified at all? In this way, you can learn. Bach teaches you how to learn your room. It teaches you where to look for reflections and how to treat them. It'll show you if you've actually treated it, if you've done any good or not, if you've wasted your time, you know. But this is just one of the nice things it does, and it can do much more than this. I'm just a beginner myself. I'm just learning a lot of this. Now, the middle chart is your frequency response. Now, the one thing you will notice right away, if you've done frequency responses by using in-room microphones from like REW or True RTA, which I use, you're going to find out this frequency response looks a lot different. And the reason being, this was taken inside your ear. The room microphone is not in your ear, nor does it take consideration of your head being there between the stereo microphones. Now, my initial response, the low end dropped off around just above 30 hertz, and it went all the way, it dropped down pretty substantially, which I was surprised at because my room response is basically flat. It's very smooth all the way through. And to find out was I took a look at my settings, and of course I had a rumble filter on, which was set rather high. And so that had a lot to do with the low frequencies dropping off. And also, all of my settings, my EQ, that type of thing, which I do in my crossover for my system, I had it all set for what the in-room mics told me. The in-room mics told me I was basically smooth and flat at this you know. And so what I did, I changed my settings, and now basically I'm doing pretty darn good down to about, I think about 25 hertz or so, 24, 23 hertz. And so, which is actually very good because my bass towers, the design of the towers were to 25 hertz. Brian had a choice to extend them all the way down to 16 or to do extremely high quality bass down to 25. And he decided he wanted to stay with where the music was, most of the music, and to do the best darn job he could with that. And so, now this upper one, be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure how this works. You'll be able to find out about that, but I believe this is what is generated as the correction factor for what your measurements told the Bach program, as far as what is being fed back in to do a correction for all that misinformation that we talked about earlier. And that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, that's your big scary screen. I mean, that is all you have to do. Now, I talked a little bit about head tracking earlier. There is a function in there for the head tracking, which I do not have active right now. I'm about to do that in a day or two. And again, it's more of a novelty approach for me. It's not something I think I will need or use, but it is a feature. And it's when you show somebody else what the system does with that, it is very, very impressive. Now, again, I recommend that your system be as dialed in as you can get it before you get the Bach, because that is going to allow you to achieve the highest levels of performance. Don't think of the Bach, it's not the great panacea. It's not going to repair a damaged system. If there's something wrong with your presentation that you're not happy with, that isn't spatially, doesn't have to do with spatial content, don't expect the Bach to fix it. Will Bach make it sound better? Oh, sure, I think it would. But if you've got issues with your system, deal with those issues first. Now, I'm sure I forgot to mention some things, but I want to keep this video as short as possible. It's just meant as an intro to what you can expect when you first get started. Again, it's an easy program. It's plug and play. It really is. The Babyface Pro, if you can see, I've got some RCA connectors going to some TRS jacks here, and I've got two that are plugged in. The two that are plugged in are going to my open reel. And the way this works is the Bach for Mac recognizes whatever input is active. So I could be playing my streamer and turn off the streamer, start running open reel, bang, you're there. That's all you have to do. You just run it. And you know, this Babyface Pro doesn't even have power connected to it. It's powered through the USB cable, which connects it to the Mac Mini. Now my second set of cables here, those are coming out of my phono preamp. So to switch from one to the other, I just have to basically unplug, plug in, and I'm there. I'm on the way. So anyway, that's it, folks. I'm sure I forgot to mention a few things, but isn't meant to be all-inclusive, just to give you an idea of my experiences, and I'll tell you, I'm all thumbs up. I'm a happy guy.